Here are 10 hacks to help you practice cake decorating without wasting time, ingredients, or money. There are so many different piping techniques, and to master each one, you'll need practice. Pipe onto parchment paper or wax paper or a silicone mat, and then scrape the piping back into the piping bag to use for practicing again and again. You'll save money on ingredients by reusing the frosting. Even for simple techniques, like piping these pointed dots to make Christmas tree lights on a cake, it's a good idea to practice them on paper or a plate before moving on to your cake, to get used to the consistency of the buttercream and the pressure you need to use when you squeeze the bag. For writing messages on cakes, it's not just the technique you might want to practice, it's also the spacing and positioning on a cake, which I think is the trickiest part. Choose a cake pan the same size as your cake, or the same size as the available space on the cake if you've already piped a border around it. Pipe your message onto the pan before the cake to practice your lettering, but also to practice centering it on the pan, scraping and repiping the message until you feel comfortable, so that when you then pipe it onto the cake, you won't make any mistakes and have to scrape it off and try again. Okay, number 3. When you make a practice cake, try out as many techniques as you can on the same cake. I often do one design on the front of the cake and another on the back, like with these 2 Valentine's Day designs. And after practicing techniques on the side of a cake, I might practice something else on the top of the cake, and maybe try a border around the bottom of the cake and another style of border on top too. This way you'll get the most out of your practice cake. Another great hack for practicing is to use a cake zombie, which is a cake that you use again and again for practice. This is especially useful if you have kids at home, so maybe it takes you several days to get around to frosting and decorating the cake, and by then it's gone stale. Instead of throwing it away, scrape it and try another frosting or decorating technique on top, or several different techniques, and then repeat by scraping again and decorating again. Number 5. Make cakes for every occasion. When I first started making cakes back in 2009, I was teaching English in Costa Rica, and I made cakes for all of my students' and friends' birthdays, and for every party I went to, and little by little my cakes got better and better until I ended up opening a cake shop and selling them. Make cakes for your neighbors, your kids' teachers, school functions or community events, and of course your friends and family. Look at this half and half cake I made recently, with half banana cake and half chocolate vanilla marble cake, covered with half and half frosting and some piping, compared to my first half and half cake before lots of practice back in 2011. Styrofoam cakes, often called cake dummies, can be used to practice all sorts of techniques without having to bake a cake first. The trickiest thing about these is that they're so lightweight, they'll slip all over the cake board if you don't attach them, so use a blob of buttercream as glue to attach the styrofoam to a cake board. And then leave it to set for a few hours at room temperature or 30 minutes in the fridge so that it's stuck securely in place and won't move around. Then you can frost it just like you would frost an actual cake. Now you can practice whatever techniques you like. Make mini cakes instead of large ones when you want to practice a technique. You'll save time because the cake layers will bake quicker, and you'll spend less on ingredients for smaller cake and frosting recipes. You can practice the same designs as you'd use on larger cakes, trying out new tools or techniques or whatever you want to practice, but for a fraction of the cost. Take this even further and practice on cupcakes instead of cakes. Pipe swirls, the kind you would pipe on top of a cake, or try out a homemade stencil, or drop flowers. I think piping is one of the trickiest parts of cake decorating because to be neat, you'll have to have the right consistency of buttercream, the right amount of pressure on the piping bag, and you'll need to move the piping bag not just with the right motion, but also at the right speed. Here's a hack. Pipe your decorations onto parchment paper and then freeze them to make them hard. It's easier to pipe down onto paper than sideways onto a cake, and if you don't like any of your piping, just don't use it. Whereas if you pipe onto a cake, if you don't like something, you'll have to scrape it off, which is messier. When the piping is frozen, just lift it up and place it onto your cake. Use a dot of fresh buttercream to attach it, like glue. This way you can choose before putting it on the cake which piping is the prettiest and only use those parts. For the top of a cake, trace around the baking pan onto a piece of parchment or wax paper and then pipe within the circle. If you don't like any of the piping, it's easier to scrape it off this paper than an actual cake. Put the piping into the freezer to chill and set so that it's firm, and then pick each piece up and place it onto your cake. Number 10. Take my online courses. You'll find hundreds of cake decorating ideas and designs to watch, and instead of figuring them out yourself by watching hundreds of YouTube videos until you find the one that answers your questions, find everything in one place on my Cake School and ask your questions below each video and they'll come directly to me so I can answer them straight away. Start your free 7-day trial by going to britishgirlbakes.com and click on Cake School. See you there.